welcome to the podcast. Hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well out there. This is getting recorded on Halloween, so happy spooky day. And this is going to be our not our last like totally spooky movie, but to celebrate it, we're doing a spooky-ish movie. Welcome to the pod. This is PolarizedPod. This is a podcast about polarizing movies in the sense of Rotten Tomato scores. Sometimes critics love it and audiences hate it, which is the case in this movie, or vice versa is also what we talk about on this podcast. Those are the types of movies. I, the one speaking to you, is one of your hosts. My name's Brandon. Hey, how's it going? And at this point, I would like to introduce, this isn't just a one-hander. This is a two-hander. And I'm going to introduce that co-host. Sometimes we refer to him as the forever guest. His name is Mr. James Lindsay.
Hey, it's all hands on deck. It's a two-hander. We're each of one of us using one hand each, because we can do this with at least one hand tied behind each one of our backs. But then we need two of us, and it's going to be a two-hander. And I'm the co-host, co-captain, forever guest, here to talk about the movies.
We're talking about.
I like the movies. I like the movies.
I like the movies. Hey, so this is the kind of dynamic you can expect for the rest of this episode, and for all the other episodes. So go check those out.
Welcome in.
Hey, welcome in. Come on in.
It's fucking Halloween. Can you believe it?
It's Halloween.
We're telling you what day it is on this one. We don't do that every time. We're letting you know.
No, we don't. Yes. We're letting you in on how the sauce is made.
We could be trick-or-treating right now. But there's an alien. There's multiple aliens. We saw little crescent circles outside our each of our respective homes, and now we're bunkered in.
We're bunkered in.
The aliens are classic case of bunkered in. Aliens are
I'm gonna just
clicking
boiling water.
Start boiling some water, make sure you turn off anything that's going to make noise. I mean, I have that nativity set.
I was going to say, unplug your town diorama you have set up in your living room.
Diorama. Oh, no.
Yeah, you're doing your little city building in your house all by yourself. Wait, so I forgot to say, hey, Mr. Co-host, forgot to say my B. We're doing the movie No One Will Save You. This is 82% critics. 56 stinky
pew pew.
Stinky pew pew audience of 56. This is a movie that came out this year. It stars Caitlin Deaver, and that's about it.
From our previous entry, Dear Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan Hansen, which I don't think we really. I'm trying to remember while I was watching this, because I really enjoyed her. I mean, she makes this movie, right?
Yeah, she's great.
I mean, there's a lot to say about this movie, but her performance is not one of them.
Only good things. Only good things.
Yeah. my good fellow.
Yes, my dear fellow movie lover. Let us recline and discuss film.
Let us recline and discuss film. So that's the movie we're doing. So 2 questions I have for you, Mr. Lindsay, is, so question number 1 is, what is your favorite Halloween candy?
Ooh.
Okay.
So what I
think about
like,
that.
Okay. I'll wait.
And then and question number 2 is, what are you watching?
Ooh, what are you watching?
Outside of this, what are you watching?
So
go.
In my bag, the thing that I'd be the most excited to get would be one of 2 things. It would be a singular Reese's. I like when it's just a singular little Reese's cup. And that's usually done on Halloween, is you'll get the big bag, and then you don't have to plow through. Snack size, And those are, the snack size Reese's are pretty good too. Those are the small ones. But those tend to be more chocolate to peanut butter ratio. Those kind of Reese's Minis in my mind.
Reese's Minis. Oh, okay.
But the regular just flat saucer shape.
The flats.
The saucer shapes. The ones that you would go up and get your mind probed in and come out the other side a better person. Yeah, those are great. And then I've always fucking just love Snickers, whatever size you want, baby. I just love a Snickers. Those little minis are pretty great there too.
One would say you're kind of a Snickers slut by the sounds of it.
I mean, that's what I would usually say when I would approach houses was trick or treat. Snickers slut here. I'm a little Snickers slut. Hand it over.
And how old were you when you were doing?
Last year. I'm skipping this year, but I was doing. Yeah, that was last Halloween. I don't know, but maybe after this record, I can get some Snickers. Walking around on the street, the dark streets on Halloween, just selling myself for Snickers. That's
so catch James later tonight.
That's a peek behind the curtain. But I hope whatever sins that are in my past, should I be summoned into the skies by aliens, that they would absolve me of my sins and send me back to hang out with them for the rest of my days, as one would hope. So that's answer number one.
Everybody wins in this. Oh, yes, I want to hear what you're watching, but to that point, it's like, so everybody wins in this movie, right? Everybody kind of comes out on top.
In a WandaVision sort of way, I don't know if you, but like, it just seems, I mean, all the people with those fucking things in their throat, we're already jumping into this, but the things in their throats, I guess, I don't know how they feel about it, but the parasite that's inside of them makes them look happy and like to dance.
They love dance.
They love it. The aliens love to dance. They came all this way to take part in our customs.
Yes,
we should accept them. What am I watching though? I'm trying to think.
What are you watching?
Because it's just been a lot of been loving just watching movies for this podcast, and making that such an event of my week has always been great. And trying to get into some scary video game playing, I guess. I've been doing the Resident Evil 8. I know that's not watching, but it feels so cinematic, and it feels like a scary sort of thing that I'm partaking in for the season. I have been doing the Finch Man.
How great is that game?
Great game. Love it a lot. Would highly recommend.
So far, how do you feel about it in relation to 7?
That's what I was thinking about. Yeah, it's a part of me almost likes it a little bit better, and I know that a lot of people do like 7 more because it is really a return to form, and it is such a ode to the classic Resident Evil experience. And it does have that Texas Chainsaw Massacre sort of inspiration, like 70s horror sort of stuff, but something so goofy and fun about this 8th one that's just very fantastical and has a whole like combination of all these fantastical monsters, and it's still extremely scary at parts for me. I just encountered there's a monster baby that you experience at one point, and that scared the shit out of me.
Wow, you did that whole thing, man. Isn't that really terrifying?
Yeah, I think I watched when you played it. I think I was watching, you were streaming it, and I watched you experience that part, and almost made me just not want to play the game but when I was approaching that part, I was a little prepared at least, but it's still fucking is very scary. But yes, highly recommend all of those games. We've talked about going through those. I think last year we did Resident Evil the movie.
I'm such a huge fan
our
now.
History with those games, and I'm looking forward to doing RE4 next. I've just been going through a lot.
It's wonderful, man. It's really, really wonderful. It's very similar in a lot of ways to the 8 that you're playing, where it is much more fantastical and much more of an adventure, but it continues to be pretty and European.
There's like castles and stuff. It's cool.
European, right?
Yeah, that was the next thing you're gonna say. We finish each other's European.
In Europe. European.
But yeah, a lot of David Fincher movies. We love the Blank Check guys, and been going through those. And then I went and saw Tequila in theaters. Took myself out on a little solo venture and saw that. Had a great time. Loved it. Love Fassbender. Love Fincher, and would highly recommend that movie as well.
Yeah, it's been really fun revisiting the Finchies.
Yeah, you've been going through those as well.
Yeah.
I also want to hear your candy choice.
candy choice, Twix.
Oh
And
yeah.
what I've been watching is I just had a after last record, my night consisted of watching Silence of the Lambs back to back with Fargo.
Oh wow. I almost thought you were gonna say like Red Dragon or Hannibal or something. You're gonna like go straight
Mm-mm.
through the trilogy.
And
Fargo.
then
Wow.
Fargo.
Fargo's
And
both of them amazing movies and kind of similar in a lot of ways.
very similar in a lot of ways, and also because I've been watching so much horror, like kind of straightforward horror,
Mhm.
that both of those movies are kind of horror movies but in a different way, and it
Yeah,
was
way
really
more Silence
wonderful.
of the Lambs, but there's definitely horrific elements. Like a guy going through a wood chipper isn't exactly uh, something that's in most like thrillers and mystery movies. But to build up to that, really, to shed the the nature of what's really going on in that movie near the end. Love it. And I fucking just the best William H. Macy performance for me is in that movie. And that's probably not a hot take or anything. He's got
No,
plenty of
that's fine.
good performances, but Bill Lundegaard, or right? Isn't that his name?
Yeah, Bill Lundergaard.
Lundegaard. Yeah.
Yeah,
All that stuff, and with his father-in-law
no
and
deal,
everything.
no deal.
Yeah.
These
Great, man.
guys,
You
you
fit
don't want
that
to
in.
mess with these guys. I'm telling you.
We're working on our Macy's
I'm
over
just
here.
trying to handle this, Steve. Okay,
Gotta trust me.
you got to trust me. Amazing.
Yeah, Francis.
I just have such a
McDormand. Oh my God.
connection with that movie too, because my mom's from Minnesota, and I have a lot of family members that kind of talk like that,
Of
and
course,
it's
yeah.
so silly. It's such a silly, like lyrical almost way of speaking that is wild. I
Such a
love.
fun
Uh,
combination of that with the horrific, elements of that movie with all the sing-songy, nice, polite
mhm,
people that are
yep.
going through it, and then
Frances McDormand in that is amazing. I love her
absolutely.
husband too. That whole scene where she
Yeah,
wakes up
you
for the
gotta
first
eat
time,
breakfast,
and
Marge.
you got to eat breakfast, Marge,
Gotta eat
and
breakfast. I'll make
you
you
got
some
to eat
eggs.
breakfast, and then it just is this really cool shot of like them at the table. She has to leave. He scoots her plate to him, starts eating it. She goes out to the car, has to come back, and it's just so early in the.
And what's his thing
It,
at the end? Like, because she goes through her whole experience, and they just have such a lovely, respectful
he's in like
relationship
a
that
painting
she like
competition.
she like asks him about that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I did pretty good. I got
Yeah.
like whatever second place." And she's like, "Oh wow!" And she's like so excited for him, and really, and he's
Yeah.
so like supportive of her and everything that she's doing, but it's
Yeah.
also treated very, I don't know, it's so comfort, and the chemistry is very much familial, and obviously her being having that maternal sort of energy is such an interesting aspect of that movie. Always meant to watch the show, but yeah,
Same, but yeah, I
there's
don't know.
so much too much to
We like
watch out there.
movies here a lot, you know?
Yeah, we're big movie guys. We're big
We're
movie
big movie
guys.
guy. So speaking of movies, uh no one will save you.
How did you hear about this movie? Did you like peruse it on
It came so as I've already disclosed, I am on this big horror movie kick. Num 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 num. All of it. And I was so been watching horror movies frequently on Hulu.
They make a lot of them. They have like every
Halloween is on there.
Huluween. They have a Huluween every year where they add a bunch of
Spooktober,
stuff,
baby.
and they like produce and make a bunch of content for every Halloween.
They absolutely do, because that's the business that they're in, is producing content. And some of it kind of feels like fodder, which this movie feels a little bit like that to me. I
There's
saw
clearly
this,
a budget.
clearly a budget. To answer your question though, yes, I saw it as a featured Hulu, only on Hulu. And I'm in advertising. I love exclusives. Tell me what, give me some of that exclusives. And so I was interested in watching something that is a Hulu produced movie.
Yeah.
right? Because these
They've made some
tech
good stuff
companies
and some
are
bad stuff.
becoming movie production houses, and I think it is always interesting to talk about them, about the movies that they make and what they're doing.
Well, the first time in theaters, the last time when I saw The Killer was the first time I saw the Netflix logo come up.
In a theater.
Yeah, in a theater before the movie. And that was interesting. Never seen that before. And it has its own special
Right.
look to it.
Totally. Yeah. And there's, yeah. The thing is that it's exciting to see new production houses come onto the scene if they're making good movies, making them ethically, all of that stuff. But yeah, it's really interesting to talk about an application and a streaming service getting into the content business, because that speaks at large what that whole industry is doing. Like you said, seeing a movie that is a Netflix movie in a theater, I think this movie would have benefited from being in a
I
theater,
think
and
it
that's
did
kind of
have
a
like a
problem.
select release or something like that, but it just went, yeah, came and went very quickly. It came out September 22nd, I guess, so like a month before Halloween proper. I don't know if that hurt or helped it, but um, I'm sure it had some buzz when it first dropped and people discovered what the movie actually was. And we're going to get into later on in the show, of course, reviews and everything and people's reactions. And that's honestly why we're here today at Polarized Pod, is because people came down on one side or the other very strongly, and they
Mm.
had a reaction to this. But for the most part, to talk about, like, yeah, Netflix and all these streaming services making their own movies, yeah, Hulu is very hit or miss for me, and maybe that you can speak broadly about a lot of streaming
Yeah,
services and their success on producing their own content, because a lot of times they do want to make it for a smaller budget and hope that it hits big in a way that they can make a lot for very little. And
it's the
it's
Bloomhouse
kind of
effect of it all.
nice, especially with horror movies, yeah, and especially with the Huluween thing.
Mm.
But in Hulu's case, it is kind of refreshing sometimes, for better or worse, even if it is not the best movie. It's like, oh, they do, they make these horror movies, but they also make like these low to mid budget comedies that you don't
That are
really
cool.
get much of. And Netflix occasionally does it too. And they do a lot of stand up, of course.
You're so right, though. Yeah, about Hulu being a good front runner of that, because like Palm Springs was really great and funny.
Definitely. That one was really good. And then I don't know, for whatever it's worth, I thought Vacation Friends was pretty funny. And then they made a second
think so,
one
too.
I haven't seen.
I have seen the second one. It's pretty good.
Cool. Yeah. There's like
It's
an
got funny
energy
stuff in it.
an energy of those movies that it's like, hey, this reminds me of like a comedy from early 2000s or
Mhm.
90s or something like that, where maybe it's a little stupid or silly in that sort of way, but it's you can kind of read the budget a little bit too. Like Vacation Friends, they went to a nice hotel and they filmed it all at this nice hotel, and it's really not
Yeah.
that many locations. And with this one, it's like, it kind of bumps it up a little bit for me to see the creative prowess to use a small amount of resources to be able to create a story. But then it also, it hurts it in other ways we'll get into specifically with this movie.
Mm.
But within the Bloomhouse thing as well, I know that is just something that is extremely popular now too, in terms of horror movies, of if you can construct a script that really revolves the whole story around one location and one house and someone either stuck there, or all of the action really taking place in one
Mhm.
location. And yeah, I don't know, for the story really has to be enticing, and there really has to be interesting things going on creatively for that to follow through.
Mhm.
More recent example would be something like Barbarian, or uh
This movie gets
there's
lumped
plenty
into
of
with Prey. Is I'm seeing a
another
lot of
Hulu made
it's
movie. I mean, that one is all outdoors and has like uh, a more broader cast, and that movie's
that
really
movie is made
good.
with
I like that movie a lot.
right. So I mean, I bring that up because it is.
But it's not the highest budget either. You can tell that they're doing.
Critics are lumping them together from a Hulu production.
Right.
The critics are, because they like this movie,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it speaks to things that I've definitely talked about, and you agree with as well. Of like, no, well, I don't know necessarily, and please let me know otherwise. But like the last episode we did with Danny about the Pope's Exorcist is that was a pretty medium to low budget movie, and it
Hmm.
did a lot for what it
Really one
was
location as
working with,
well.
and that can be really fun and exciting. And there is definitely a want by me to have more movies like that, because there has been an issue. And also the Blumhouse of it all, for better or for worse, is like Blumhouse shows you that you can make, if you keep the budget really low and the creative like kind of shtick of it, takes off, and there is a lot of just playing the numbers game, then there's a lot of financial reward for doing that. And so I think that it's nice to see medium to low budget movies getting made more, and we do want to see more of that trend, because that is something that has died out from the Marvel effect of it, where you're just seeing mainly movies in theaters being like 200 million, 300 million dollars, and that's the only reason that people will go out to the theater. Which to this movie's like, yeah, it's just a bummer. I think this could have done well broader, with people seeing it collectively together, and there's just not a there's the industry isn't doing that, and that's unfortunate. And it's hard to continue having movies made at this level if you're not going to put them in theaters so that they are profitable, because we're just living in this weird black box time where streaming services are producing movies, and the profitability of them is so opaque. So it really just makes this weird kind of standard and understanding in what success is in this industry right now, where it just seems like in order to be in the theaters it has to be really expensive, and a majority of the time those really expensive movies start catering to too many and start becoming uninteresting. And we want to have like kind of medium to low budget movies that are really interesting being played at a larger scale, so that more people are at least having the discussion about movies like this. And it is a bummer, like you were saying, this movie coming out in September, no one's really talking about it. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, but I think if it would have received a broader distribution, and not been controlled by a streaming service who wants just more fodder for their content, for their platform, movies like this could maybe get the legs. Now, it, I'm not. I don't
I
want to
think it
make
had its
it
pop
seem.
when it first came out and then just kind of went away. Yeah. And it didn't have any lasting power,
Yeah,
is my guess. But as far as what effect that has on the streaming service and how many people just signed up for Hulu because they saw this movie was exclusive to this uh, streaming service, yeah, like you're saying, that it is opaque and we're not sure like what that actually means for them. But to get a certified fresh critic review, I don't even know if that means anything either. But
because that could be
for
paid for as
for a
well.
horror
Yeah,
movie that's an hour and a half, that's short with a low budget and everything, like that seems to be something more in line with what would be an audience favored in our experience on this podcast. I don't know, it would be something that would be that like a popcorn fun horror movie that drops on a streaming service that audiences have a good time with it. But yeah, critics were more into this one uh than the audience, and I think there were some hooks that didn't completely jive with all audience members. But I'm glad we like talked about just, I don't know, the horror movie genre in general. I tend to like stuff like this too, like the sci-fi sort of thing, and stuff that has like a little bit of fantastical element to it. But this one goes in an interesting direction, which isn't apparently clear. And just watching the trailer just before we started recording, I didn't even know anything about this movie going in. I think I had scrolled by it on Hulu and maybe like added it to my
mhm,
list and then just kept on scrolling or something like that. But
sure.
there's nothing that was really screaming at me to check this out. And there's just so
Because
much stuff out there. It's hard to
so
really
much
hone
stuff
in.
out there.
Yeah. And
It's crazy how a movie like this gets buried, right? Like we're talking about a movie that cost a couple $1 million to make. That isn't necessarily a bad movie, and we're about to get into it, audience. But like, yeah, to just feel this sense of like a whole production was made to make this movie, and then it just becomes a tile on a fucking screen that gets a little bit of promotion depending on how your algorithm feels about you, is really just yeah, kind of that's the real horror movie in my mind. Because yeah, I don't like, is this movie great? Debatable, but I think that people would have had fun in the theater seeing this.
Sure. I don't see why not. And I think it has, and I don't, it's an hour and a half. Like it has enough to keep people interested. I'd say if you're locked in. But I mean, I think, yeah, we should start getting
Yeah, let's do it.
into the actual movie proper. And this is something that I had no idea what this movie was going into it, besides just seeing kind of like a poster and maybe like a house with like aliens. That's all I knew, or like a flying saucer over a house. No one will save you is kind of innocuous. Not really sure what that means. And the movie starts, and in my mind, this is an introduction to everything. Why she is alone and setting the stage, and there's no one else around, and she's not speaking. She's not speaking. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. So that's like, and I just had this conversation with you, Brandon, recently about a Pixar tier list that we put together just for funsies, because we're like that. We like movies. I like the movies. I like Pixar
movies. I like to movies.
And I had to put WALL-E S tier for myself because it's such an amazing film. Sure. And it's such a good example of using the effect that this movie is using for the entire thing. But in WALL-E, it is really the first like 15, 20 minutes where there is no dialogue. And it's to great effect. And to this one, it definitely has a great effect on you, but whether you're willing to commit as much as the movie is committing is completely up to you. And I am saying right now is a big part of the polarizing reviews. But at the beginning, I'm very in on this. Like, I'm very interested in what's going on. I like that they're refraining from some of the dialogue, and it's just her just existing in this house alone. I'm already getting a little or a little bit not this again, when it's when she's doing all the miniatures, man. Like, it's a trope now, and I don't know, I'm trying to think how many horror movies have this, but it's got to be Hereditary. Hereditary was the most recent one, I think. Was it that one that had the dollhouse and all the miniatures and everything? Like, there's so many horror movies, I feel like, that they'll just have like a little dollhouse or miniatures representing, that's supposed to have some bigger symbology or representing. Yeah, and in other movies it goes into it deeper, or it does, and this one it just like many other things, I don't think it's kind of weak on the follow through, or it's just there to add a flourish to this character of her going through her trauma, which we find out later about. But that was my first little hiccup, and then just slowly sinking into the no dialogue. How was that for you? Yeah. Did you expect that? Did you know that's what this was?
No, I knew nothing about this movie, just like you. I was getting already really wrapped up in my mind about the way that this movie looks, because there's things about this movie that I like.
Yeah.
And definitely. But there's a lot of times that it is falling into the stereotypes of what a current present modern movie looks like. It was really at odds with the film already in that regard, where the decisions to where the camera is, I thought were interesting, but there's a lot of aesthetics applied to the film, like, in After Effects or whatever, that is so just like every other streaming movie or every like stereotypical movie made now. And we've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah. For being in one location, I don't know, you got to be like Malignant or some shit where you're like, whoa, look at where the camera's going. Whoa,
we're like cameras like in the attic, and it's like moving through rooms and stuff. Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, Flanagan has a nice way of like getting you into the geography and making you feel like the house has a character of its own.
Yeah, it's right. It's the fifth Beatle.
Yeah, it's like New York City, babe. Babe.
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, Bob. It's like New York City. Bob.
It's like Sex in the City. So her doing all of these like intricacies of the house made me also really think, like I had just briefly mentioned earlier about where the crawdads saying, like this kind of what women do when left to their own devices. They get really interested.
Yeah, she is kind of like a Marsh girl, isn't she?
She is. She's just kind of like, Marsh Girl had her drawings of bugs or whatever it was, and then now,
those are way cooler.
Yeah, than these little fucking dolls.
I mean, no. She makes dresses. She makes dresses too.
So much cooler.
Oh, so much fucking cooler. Take a painting of a plant any day.
Yeah. So there's bullshit dollhouses.
No, the dollhouses are fine. It's so the trope. It's a trope really now. It's interesting how that's, in my mind, how that's kind of become a weird trope of horror movies.
It is.
Opening on somebody working on their dollhouse miniature. Like, I don't know. It just is classic now.
Mm-hmm.
And she's sending dresses. There's some words written on a page. This is
an Etsy.
You're kind
Etsy
of
store.
You're kind of trying to piece together some.
She's got like an online
things.
business, which goes into this question that I think both of us had is, what year is it? what time are we in right now? Because she's got this seemingly online business all by herself. So her mother died and her best friend died, but she's living in this house by herself. She's got this business.
Are these modern dresses or are these retro?
I can't tell.
There's a lot of floral design.
As somebody who likes fashion, just
high-waisted.
A little briefly, it's what she's wearing has a lot of current modern fashion to it, is because fashion goes in cycles, and so you'll see trends in 70s cropping up in
but then she also
now early 2000s, but like there is a modernist to her look. I think her look in general, like her as an actress, is great. Like I just off the bat, Caitlin Dever is not.
Oh, we've already
any problem
said that
I have any problem I have.
But what she's wearing, is like the high-waisted jeans and I'm trying to think like sneakers and like a floral, mustardy yellow shirt, which is like that yellow can be like, especially when you got
sleeves.
Yeah, these like kind of like
puffy sleeves. Like that's the thing
but they combined with the house, which has not changed in the amount of time that her mom dies, like is the house of the time as well, or she it's also part of her trauma where she refuses to move on. Because the big glaring thing for me a little bit later in the movie, where I've already been questioning what year it is, why in the hell does she have a rotary phone?
I wrote, where's the cell phones? It's gotta be
the cell phones.
It's gotta be.
But then she has like a flat screen, right?
She does, and then I also looked up her Subaru.
Modern.
I legitimately was so interested in the year of this that I looked up what her Subaru, that big arm-legged alien or whatever.
Oh yeah,
gets burned in, and I looked up the Subaru, and like that's a 1990s Subaru. So again, I'm like, okay, maybe it's the early 90s, but then I couldn't understand why she doesn't have a cell phone, and it was just a lot of these. Okay, I understand though. So let it.
Details are light in this movie. It's an hour and it's an hour and a half horror movie, and there's little glimpses.
Sure,
but stuff like that is already begging the question where. And this is going to be a driving point for me, I think, throughout this, is you committed so hard to no dialogue that it hampered the movie in other ways, where some of that stuff would be easily handled in a throwaway line or two, or something that would spend a little time on filling out what's a little bit of the setting. But in my mind, this movie just seems so committed to this no dialogue thing for not a good enough reason. Perhaps the intro is great. Love that. But past that, it seems like a handicap rather than like a creative flourish that it could flourish in other areas had it just accepted that it could add a few scenes of whatever. I don't know. It's hard for me because I don't want to tell this movie how to be completely, but
I can.
it's just
I am.
you can see it just like holding itself back, and it's so fucking frustrating because it's really cool in a lot of ways, but it's holding itself back.
Yeah. So I re-watched It Follows, and I watched some interviews with the director, and he made a stylistic choice to make it very ambiguous of the time period that it's in, because he was wanted people to think less about like what I'm questioning. What year is it? Because why don't they have cell phones? Yada yada yada, like all of this stuff, and wants it to have this era of, this is focused on this thing that is doesn't need to be represented by time, and push it to trying to just classically tell a narrative. But this movie is so sparse on things that I'm constantly trying to like figure shit out about it, because it's giving me so little of it, and I'm just like, why is this happening? Where are we? What time is this? Why is it, all of this shit? And I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, is that a failing on my part? Am I overthinking this? Or is the movie just presenting me things in a way where it is begging the question and I'm interested in the answer, but it has no interest in telling me what the answer is, because maybe it doesn't have an interesting point of view?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail on the head with that, with this movie. Unfortunately, like I don't think it's following through because it doesn't know what to follow through on, because it doesn't have. And the big thing for me is, and we're just getting, because it's hard to go beat by beat with this movie because it is silent, essentially silent movie, but the big parts of this movie are her past and why the town hates her and
Yeah.
aliens attacking her home. They
Aliens attacking our home happens very quickly. So this whole,
but
just real quick to
just
interject, is like,
but
the story of her in relation to the town, her relation to the conflict of the alien, and then how you would learn more about the character in kind of a like somewhat linear way. At least you're going through a movie giving information to the audience, and it is little bit of information about her but very opaque, then goes right into an invasion movie, then goes into another movie where there's interaction with the town, then goes into an action movie with aliens, and it just ends up like really not letting you have those moments, because it is shifting through things so wildly. It is
right.
more
So
focused on like, let's have this in there.
right. So that's essentially what I'm trying to get at was those are the big things. Is it's whatever. It's whatever. I'm kind of just the connective. I was about to say whatever. Uh, I was
It's
about to
okay.
say it, and
I'm
I was
sorry.
losing it, but those three things that I mentioned of her at her house, and or sorry, her trauma and her past and the aliens attacking are like the big, and the town hating her. Those are the three things that this movie has to reconcile. And yes, like you said it goes through those portions, and I agree with you where there is no connective tissue or reason why. Also, the other thing would be it's completely silent the whole time. They don't justify it. They don't reconcile all of those things together, and they don't give a reason why it needs to be silent and why this trauma that she has with her past about accidentally murdering her friend and, well, purposely harming her. It's
Mhm.
manslaughter, folks. But it does not properly reconcile those things, and it does it in a way that's a very, like, an enticing enough Twilight Zone episode that should be an hour long instead of a half hour is definitely like more of a broader, like, reaching into final thoughts of this movie, but it's hard to go piece by piece because it's just constantly begging these questions that it doesn't have the wherewithal to answer. Is like where we're at.
Mhm. Yeah. It's okay. Let's to reel it into the plot. Like, we get into this home invasion movie relatively quickly into the movie. And that part is in a lot of ways pretty scary. I would argue that the first half of this movie
Yeah,
is
I'm in
the
on the
horror movie.
beginning.
But what did you question I have is let's really get into it. What did you think about the aliens and the way that they
They were fine. That they're
they
grays.
got these two big hands.
I like the
fingers.
feet. The feet are pretty cool, but they're like
The feet are like little fingers, and then they got these two really long fingers.
Yeah. I like that there's a little bit of variance between the size. There's the sizing changes, and I don't know what they all mean, but I like the sizing differences, and then I like their little hand feetsies are nice, and how you get a nice close up of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's acceptable because they're grays. They're just like the most like typical stereotypical kind of aliens with like the big eyes and and those and like very typical
the eyes
features.
were like the eyes were there's a lot of eye stuff.
Yeah, a lot of eye stuff, a lot of hand and stabbing of skulls. And then yeah, the big one was really cool. I like that big one.
Yeah, the big one's scary, but the little one really at all.
I didn't get what its deal was, man.
Yeah. Why is
like, what do you want, little guy? And then it would just sit in the fucking hallway and start doing the and doing these hand motions. And then just like, what the fuck? And then slamming it with the cupboard door. I just wasn't sure how I felt about it. I was like, is this a child alien or is this an old man alien? Or what kind of alien is it, and what does it want? I just always just curious, what does it want?
Yeah, so that's a good question about them. I think that the CGI of the aliens is good, but again, this movie puts me at odds right off the bat because and I understand that it's because it's challenging my predilections to good versions of this, and I should let it be more of it on its own and stand on its own 2 feet instead of doing a hard comparison. But it's really difficult to not enjoy the concept of you don't need to show the aliens yet. It's so much scarier to not have them so visible so quickly. And the fact that the aliens we get such a clear visual of the aliens so quickly into the movie really makes it less scary for the rest of it.
The reason that it had I agree with you, but narratively why they might have done it and maybe why it kind of worked a little bit was like there was a suspicion and a mystery as to why, and this is the other portion I was talking about, as to why everyone hated her at town. And to know that there really were aliens and that there was a dead alien body waiting for her at home when she like would go into town or whatever, or when she was trying to figure out like how to fix the issue, you almost knew that it wasn't in her head already, and you knew that it was real, and then she would go back and then it was still there. That was an element that kept me going a little bit longer, you know, because those two things hadn't, like I'm saying, they like hadn't been reconciled, and I was waiting for them to like give you the answer, and hopefully it'd be satisfying as to, oh, maybe it has something to do with why everyone hates her in town, or like, and I was, yeah, in my mind, you're like, oh, is she an alien? Are the rest of the town aliens or something? Has something already happened like that? And that mystery gets you going a little bit longer, again, in like a Twilight Zone sort of way. Because that moment when she does go into town after the first attack, and that's such a build up to possible dialogue and possible speech between two people, and somebody's mouth does open. Something does come out, but it's not words.
God, yeah. And after that, James, think about the connection that she gets spit on, and then the spit of the alien ends up becoming the little guy, or what? I don't get it. I'm sorry. I'm acting like I understood what the spit was about. I feel like I looked down at my phone to write a note, and then all of a sudden the spit meant something. Can you explain to me what was going on with the spit out of the mouth?
Out of the lady?
No, that I understand.
No,
out of the alien.
At which point the creature that was going into her mouth, or
So when she comes back from getting spit on and then also having
Uh-huh.
that attack on the bus, which was it's scary a little bit, but then it was so I was God, the whole time I wanted to be in on the movie, but I'm like, why? I need a little bit more of like why all of a sudden now the like certain people on the bus were
Yeah.
most people on the bus were
Yeah.
like this person's crazy, but then this guy's crazy. Why is that guy crazy? And it
It's a
just
body
drove me
snatchers thing. That's all that is in my mind, of just
right.
like these people are getting taken over and infected, and it was just at a mid invasion at that point, and she was experiencing it. And yeah, I don't know. It's like it's hard for me to fully criticize her. I'm like, oh, that's gonna solve everything. It just needs more dialogue. Like, if that's what you wanted to do, that's what you wanted to do. But I just don't think it benefited as much as they might have hoped that it would. Because yeah, I don't need necessarily a news thing in the background on a TV. It's like, there's been an attack on a city, and it's year 1993,
50.
and let me tell you exactly what's happening. There is a nice sort of element of like, oh, I'm in the perspective of the main character, and the element of unknowing. But that busing was kind of annoying. Of it would just went up to the bus driver, and the bus driver just looked back and was like,
What?
just like I just nothing. He didn't say. He just looked back and was like, "Wow, this is crazy. What's happening right now?" And then there were some people that were like, "Oh, we should help her," like reaching out their hands or something, but not saying anything. And then just a lot of, uh, alien clicking and sputtering and
In
stuff.
the
Which I must say, great audio design. The aliens are fine. Like they're solid, but the audio design was huge, and some of the lighting effects of. I like a classic kind of sucking you up into their saucer. Like that's fun. Like if you
yeah.
want to go into a classic sort of, and that's why they're gray aliens. So it fits the whole theme of just like, yeah, we're gonna do just they are right down the middle. Aliens, saucers. It's an invasion. Like I think a little less mystery with that helped you to focus on a little bit more mystery of her character, which the movie should have.
Fair.
Not should I don't, but could have done a little bit more with that. Because it had in my mind removed a little bit of the mystery of like, oh yeah, these are for sure aliens, and they're attacking, and then yeah, getting into their ship was interesting
What a
enough.
hot
I
take.
like yeah, some of the design stuff like you know not bad. Some of that stuff was but I wasn't super scared
I
or
agree
anything.
with you.
But
I agree
the
with
opening
you.
house invasion a little bit. But
Yeah. And
it's
then we have
in a
another
way it's Earth
yeah,
as our home, and that's the invasion. That's what's really happening.
I mean, this movie is just a collection of home invasions. To talk about again the scale of this movie
That's
is
where it
all that
drags in the middle.
she has a home invasion in the first part of the movie, then she goes out into town, no one talks to her, and it's so aggressive to me that no one talks to her. Like it really is
You're
noticeable
talking about
because
after the invasion, she gets spit on and everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
on her just going to the town and all that, it's just
she
so
does not
aggressive that
try hard enough to be
no one
that much
talks
of
to
a
her.
pariah in town. I don't know,
Yeah.
to get spit on by
The
in the
interesting thing
police
now,
station.
I know, God, I was like, that's battery.
I
Like
know.
that
Who
person
cares if he's
could
the
get,
police chief? I mean, come on. She was
yeah, that
she was
person
a child.
was a child. That is battery though. I remember learning about that in law class about how
It's a
yeah, like
projectile.
spitting somebody on somebody is totally battery, and the fact that it happens in the police station is just so jarring and weird because there's so much of this movie. I feel so weird kind of saying this, but like oftentimes I'm like, why is this happening? Like, why is this allowed to happen? What does this mean? All of that stuff. It's so much presenting things to you in a way that is so either thinly veiled or has no substance behind it that really like is visually cool and interesting. But I'm left with a bunch of questions. So,
This next series of home invasions is really where it drags for me. I agree. This is where it and that's where it reminds me of Pope's Exorcist a little bit, and horror movies that just don't completely work is when they get into this rhythm in the middle of, I don't know, the monster is constantly like doing these new tricks, and if the tricks or things that it's doing to escalate things aren't escalating or aren't making it more interesting or adding more, it just starts to become repetitive and bland. And that's kind of, this just begins to add more questions as far as, yeah, different types of aliens and just her going back to the one location that this movie has already been in. So it was kind of nice for me, like, oh, she's on a bus, new location, cool. Oh, she's getting attacked here. Oh, is the post office due to the mailman? Oh, he's back. Okay, this is like escalating in a different way. Oh, she's in town, and then she has to just go back, and that was such like, that's where it started to lose me in a big way. Was she got spit on, and then she just goes back home as if
immediately
she's defeated just from, and it's like you start to see later on that everyone's getting attacked, and or I guess, or does she realizes it then, I guess, too, maybe, and so she goes home and starts nailing blankets to her window and stuff like that, and she starts to realize that this is more widespread, of course, with the bus attack. But then, yeah, it turns into what the movie already was aliens are attacking her home.
Yeah.
So it sucks. It sucks like the other guy back in or whatever, and then the little guy and the big guy. You got Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Little Bear,
long leg and tiny leg guy.
Yeah.
It's so funny to talk about this movie because there's so little that happens in it that is, yeah, I don't know.
There's a red light at one point.
Yeah. The little guys I didn't care for. The long legged guy, man, then just gets like kind of caught in a car.
Oh yeah.
It's not.
That was very
almost
pretty
like
klutzy. It was like it's able to burst a hole through one portion of the car, but isn't able to
figure out how to get
out of it. Yeah. These damn weird little feet hands that I got aren't retractable enough to go back in once I'm pushed through an automobile. And then and then just explodes. I kind of like, it's hard because there's nothing super glowing about this movie that I can give it. I like the audio design, even though there's no speech, but like I like the aliens audio design, and I like this little weird creature thing that goes like in her mouth.
I was gonna say, yeah.
There's a moment where I like was about to flip my TV off and walk away when I was like, it was all a dream. And I was like, it's 20 minutes left. There's no way that this gotta pull the rug out from under me. But I was a little worried. I was like, they're really fucking doing this right now.
Yeah.
But I knew
that little
guy had some effect.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that trope played on screen because we have recently played Baldur's Gate 3, where it has a similar situation where an alien infects the population through some type of alien as well does similarly. Where, the aliens
tadpole.
have a little tadpole that infects people's minds. And that's part of taking over. I mean, this movie it just so poorly finishes itself. And we don't have to fully get there yet, but this tadpole, the visual of it is cool.
Yeah, you see other people with it kind of sticking out of their throat and kind of like looking into the sky and just like, and
right.
But yeah, even the budget then you can tell is small because it's like a group of like 10 people.
10 people.
It's not like the whole town. It's just like a little small, like, oh, the neighbors, and they're just like looking up. And it feels like a quaint little local home invasion by the aliens of this town, and how it directly affects them in a very specific, interesting way. The mailman goes after. I like he does the Kobe shot with the box that added some life into the movie for 2 seconds. I was like, come back. And then he gets like half absorbed by and like breaks his back or whatever, I guess is what happens. That was kind of cool. But anyways, that little creature, she spits back out and then it like turns into her. That was kind of cool.
It was.
You see it, she's like running away and it's like it's like gets the beam on it and then it slowly starts forming into a body. It was kind of giving me Annihilation vibes and making me want to watch that instead.
Yeah. Yeah, that was all of that is to talk to the trauma element of this movie, right? Like
She's
her
battling herself.
battling herself because the monster theoretically goes into you and then just puts you to sleep in the best version of the life that you want.
Yeah, her
So
best friend
everybody's
was
kind of,
back, and yeah.
but then she also had to deal with the trauma, which is how she like it was really weird to me that it showed her outside as the other person after having been taken over. So theoretically, like the alien takes over people, but their body is still there and they're
Mhm.
like moving through the world,
It's
but under a
WandaVision.
spell. Yeah, which was so weird to me because I was like, oh, yeah, I'm interested. Like, did she just seem completely absent like in that control, or was it taking over her mind but also controlling her to what, to just be her? And what is the purpose of that for the aliens? Why is it just coming down and like turning people into these things? To what extent?
They really just seem, yeah, their whole deal befuddled me because they seemed curious enough, but then they weren't completely pacifist. Like
Mhm.
they would fight and they would attack her back and they would get in her face and hunt her down. But they also seemed kind of incompetent and kind
Mhm.
of clumsy and
Exactly.
a little slow and uh but
Easily
overall
kill,
curious, I
not
guess.
easily, not necessarily easily killable, but that was another thing that this movie
She
sets up.
yeah, she takes down a few. Yeah.
Yeah, she takes them down, which is yeah, kind of, which is cool. Her
And then at the end they're
competency
like,
is,
"We're good. We cool. We cool. We're good, right?
yeah, we're good, right?
Join us."
Us.
Gooble gobble.
Um, Google Gobble, aliens, baby.
This is one of the
And
yeah, we're in like the more exciting part of it, and I think getting on their ship is the climactic moment that gives me something and is a
usually
point
very
that the movie is leading to and
cool.
is attempting to do everything that I'm criticizing and levying, criticism against about reconciling these different aspects of trauma meets abduction, and her past and everything and how the town treats her. And it addresses it all in this spaceship, but just not enough and not to full, fruition in my mind because yeah, it's just kind of unclear as to what the aliens glean out of doing this process and why they feel like they want to keep her around. I guess they look at her. This would be the read, right? It's like she's an alien too in her own society. They like we relate
Mhm.
with that. She can help us. I don't know. I don't know. Is that what they're talking about?
No, that's giving
Who
the movie
cares?
more credit. Yeah. Well, no. I mean, some people will care. Yeah. It's.
And
I don't mean to be
what
too.
do they get like looking at her trauma? It seems almost like that had something to do with weighing their decision because
Uh,
them looking at that specific moment in her past while she's sitting there, obviously it's a big moment in her past, but they could look at any point in her history as in her life as a person. So I don't know, the only reason they're showing that is because there's an audience watching a movie, and that's the big part that we all need to see. But if it is important to the aliens, yeah, like how does that change their mind about anything? How does that affect what they think of her? And do I
yeah,
need
it's
to
hard to.
care, or is it just something that those are all questions that the movie's posing, and it's having fun with knowing that you're thinking about it? But we arrive, I think, at the beginning of this discussion too, is did it think of it? Did it think itself out at all, or
No, I mean, and I think the ending is apparent of that is we don't understand the objective of it. You see some reconciliation of what the movie cares about the most, which is how people do trauma. But in relation to her and the aliens, none of that makes sense. I don't know how the aliens,
Mhm.
like you said, benefit from understanding her trauma. Maybe the read is that by helping her go through it, they better understand human psychology so that they can take over people
Mhm.
better. Um, but I feel like again, that's giving the movie more credit than it's owed because I think you just go into this going like, I want to make a home invasion aliens movie, and then that's the extent of thinking about it and leaning more so on really unfinished answers as kind of like it's like if somebody wants to seem smarter than they are, they just leave kind of these really generic, ubiquitous questions out there, being like, well, what if, what
Yeah.
this? And um, it's so thinly veiled though in this movie, where you want some of those questions to be answered just because you want to know that the interest of and the like where this movie cares to tell the story is worth listening to. And I don't get to that point personally.
Yeah.
I just am constantly left with why? What are we doing?
Mhm.
I get it, but like, why does that matter? And
It's a Twilight Zone
left with
ending, which I can imagine even writing it. I know I'm not for sure on this, but it's like we want to get to this ending. Uh, but even because it's not necessarily a bad one, but the means of getting there, I don't think puts enough agency with her as to wanting to be a part of it. You see her smiling and happy at the end, but it is all at the behest of these aliens who are, have her in their little dark lab, uh, and they get to decide what her fate is. It just doesn't give you much satisfaction. And for me, too, it's like, even with that ending, I almost would have wanted some sort of voluntary or sort of expression of I don't belong with these people. I don't relate with humanity
such a good
anymore
point.
because I'm an outcast, and some sort of
Totally.
plea by her or something. And maybe that would be hokey and maybe that would be cheesy. Maybe that wouldn't work, but some sort of way of her having agency to choose this life. She seems
Yes.
happy with the outcome, but it just isn't by her own design. And it isn't, yeah, and then that would maybe be bringing that trauma into it in a way where she's able to address it in a not necessary, I don't know, it's not a necessarily happy ending. It's kind of fucked up and
Right.
whatever, but like that's still a pretty good ending, and there's a way to get to it that is way more interesting than how they
Yeah.
did it. And yeah, again, I think if it was an hour longer on a Twilight Zone episode or something like that, where that middle part of a couple other aliens, that's all that happens in the middle, right? Like a couple more aliens attack her, like, and then and then she offs them, and it doesn't really add to anything. I think you can shave for an hour and a half movie some some time off it, or add more substance where it's needed. And yeah, hate to always try to tell what a movie needs to be, because this very much feels like almost an art piece by, yeah, like it sounds, maybe it sounds like pedantic to be like it's a student film or something like that, but it almost seems like a dare or a challenge to be like, what if I made a movie with no dialogue,
Mhm.
rather than that idea being a natural sort of organic way of arriving there. It just is like, well, what if we just didn't have dialogue? Wouldn't that be crazy? Like, it just, and
Yeah.
it doesn't add enough for me. But I find myself circling in the discussion of this, because it is the rises and falls of this movie are minor and more at the beginning and end, where the middle is that little repetitive part. um what is there anything? There is a graveyard. That's one other scene,
Yeah.
location. You find a bit of stuff out there that her mom is dead, and you see her friends graveyard. But I like, as just an actor moment at the beginning when she's visiting her mom's grave, like, and she's walking away and there's just people out of focus, and she's so like socially awkward that she
Um,
just like, before she leaves, she looks in the mirror and practices waving and smiling. Love that moment. Great actor moment, especially in a movie no dialogue. Like, that's great stuff. She's bringing so much to the table with this. And then yeah, she just like looks over and smiles and does that same
mhm.
thing, just how she practiced it, and then just looks away in disgust. It just like, to be so self inflicting these wounds in yourself, and in this composure that you have, where you just can tell that this person has very little self confidence and respect, and she does that so well, which
She does.
is necessary when you can't speak it. You got to just roll up to the mailbox and be like, I hope no one
Yeah.
sees me, and you're just kind of like, what is her deal? But then the ending shot of
It's so much to the
dancing
credit of the movie that you
was
just brought
a
up.
was a nice
That
ending scene, and for a sci-fi, little short story sci-fi thing of like, yeah, someone dancing while flying saucers
mhm.
are going overhead this is a fun enough little short story sort of scene, I think. Reminding me of a short story, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there isn't anything inherently wrong with that. It just, yeah, it just kind of, again, a lot of this just feels like a little bit of like a placeholder, fodder, just not, it has an idea. That's all that it cares about. And you know what? There are plenty of movies that have been made like that. And it's not to this movie's discredit to be like that. It doesn't need to be super deep, but it rides a weird line that we've just been riding this whole conversation about. you know it's not that we hate this movie or dislike this movie even, but I don't know.
What is it
it,
trying to
it
do?
just Yeah, what is it trying to do? What is it trying to say? And that gets lost a little bit because it just doesn't give you enough to answer any of those questions that maybe you need answered just a little bit, just a
Just
tiny
a
bit.
little bit more, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah,
But
just a little bit more.
yeah. It's this movie and The Artist. They're pretty much the same. Doing the same thing.
Doing the same thing.
I didn't have much notes. I think the only other one was I just put some shoes on. Because she like walks out the door and is leaving the house. Because it's like after the first alien death, and she's just leaving the house with no shoes. Like, put some fucking shoes on. You just stepped in glass. I'm feeling good about our discussion, though. It's I think
I am too. Yeah, my notes are just a lot of, like I've been saying, is please. One of my notes is please give us some other people to talk to.
yeah.
It was. I just need aliens are back again. This little guy version of the alien is funny. Those are the kind of notes I wrote.
Yeah, there's it almost got into more of the introspective stuff when she swallowed that little creature thing. Didn't stay there long, and I'm not sure what else could be done with it, but just some sort of like the aliens invading had a little bit more like metaphor, allegorical sort of sense with her own trauma. Something like a little bit more of that connective tissue, I think, is kind of my big deal with this movie. And then just the commitment to no talking was not worth it for me for the most part. But overall, yeah, I didn't hate it, didn't love it.
So this rounds us off for the horror spooky season. I mean, to shift into the next part of the podcast and listen to the reviews, I just want to leave this though asking, like, on a scale of 1 to 5, how scary would you put this movie?
5 being the scariest, 1 being the least scary.
Yep.
Well,
no, the other way.
Whoa, glad I clarified. I don't know, like a 2. It's really not scary.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say 2.5, but like, yeah,
the aliens are kind of dopey in certain ways. Like they really are not that threatening. I wanted, because you don't see anybody else, and like you see the after effects of them getting the little. It's more of a body snatchers thing where they're curious and they want to like take over, but there isn't a moment where they straight up just like off somebody in town or something. They're just kind of like chasing her, and she's able to outrun them at every turn, and then just get them stuck in a car or in a cabinet, or like just stab them with a miniature thing. Like I don't know. They just did not seem threatening to me, and that just became more and more clear as time went on. But what would you rate them, a 2 as well?
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah,
is what I was saying. Yeah,
half scary. Well, it's like a half and half scary. Let's listen to some reviews from the.
Before we do that, let's take a quick break.
Yes, quick break, and we'll be right back for review time. Oh, welcome back, everybody. We are going into review zone, review territory. The polarizing reviews are rife here on the Rotten Tea this evening of October 31st. It's a very spooky time. to be recording a podcast. Let's check out what the people have to say. It is an 82% certified fresh from the critics. Let's check out a little smattering of reviews here. A 91 from Collider. Samantha Coley says, Deaver takes Duffield's clever, anxiety-inducing script and levels it up with her complex performance. Together, the duo are a 1-2 punch, delivering a thought-provoking sci-fi thriller that promises to become a favorite among genre lovers.
Not.
From Empire, an 80, John Nugent says, a close encounter of the wordless kind. This is a smart and splendidly scary horror sci-fi with a brilliantly brittle turn from Caitlin Deaver. It's brilliantly brittle.
Really?
Close encounter of the wordless kind. Oh, John, you've done it again.
You devil.
From IndieWire, a 75, David Elric says, things get harried in a hurry. And while Duffield doesn't reinvent the wheel when it comes to the various Home Alone-like battles that pit Alien versus Deaver, the spontaneous director stages them with rare aplomb and an unerring respect for the fact that Bryn's house represents her entire universe. Wow, David got a lot out of this movie. Good for him.
Yeah. He did.
I'll do maybe one more here. From Slash Film, a 70 from Chris Evangelista. Chris says, while I would have liked the layout of the house to be better established, No One Will Save You makes the most of its limited locations, providing you can have big thrills and chills in restricted spaces. That's the critic side of things. You start to get a little hint of some criticism at the end there. Let's check out some audience reviews. These are some 1 stars from the audience, strictly 1 stars on Google Reviews this time. Because, it's not on there's not on a lot of places because it's a Hulu thing. From Grant McCausland. Grant says, I normally love a good alien thriller / horror. Signs, Dark Skies, The Fourth Kind. But this was not it. The first 15 minutes. Girl stabs alien in head. Girl pants heavily. Aliens do dance moves. Throat bug takes over and then is easily removed. Alien falls off house, then gets stuck in car. Girl blows up car with barbecue lighter. Girl goes to town, gets spit on, buys a disguise for some reason, then goes home. Girl outruns alien with 20-foot appendages. Aliens have more dialogue than girl. Girl dances. The end. The order of these events is probably incorrect, but I promise you it doesn't matter. What a pile of poo.
That was amazing.
From what a pile of poo. He actually says what a pile of poo. He adds 2 piles in there.
Oh,
but I corrected.
Huge pile.
Big pile, double pile. From Zellion Marvel, 1 star. No One Will Save You. The title is perfect and fitting for someone who acts foolishly. No one can really save a fool, hence 1 star. No 0-star option. In this film, everything is fine except for the lack of common sense and IQ, below room temperature. If it's a Netflix series, episode titles can be like Pilot. 1. Alien on a Vacation. 2. If I Sulk, I Go Hulk. 3. The Spitz Town. 4. Jogging saves you from alien. 5. Home is everything. 6. 3 hot water kettles a day keeps the alien away. 7.
That's what the doctor says.
Where did the alien go? 8. Alien barbecue. 9. Drag me to the UV light. 10. Welcome to the community. Yeah, I want to watch that episode.
I want Alien Barbecue. That sounds lit.
This sounds like a cool album too of music. And then 11. You'll find smile on every alien face. A couple listing reviews from Thabiso Mokokwane. 1 star. If you're reading this, take it as a cease and desist order. This film is a masterclass in poor storytelling. Whatever in the visuals are cool, and the attempt at an alternative narrative is almost commendable, but it is a bad movie. So bad. Oh, wait. Oh, I lost. Oh, that's the end. So bad. Yeah, it's just so bad. Yeah. And let's
so bad.
so bad. Let's do like one or two more.
That's how okay.
So bad.
Sounds good. Yeah. Let's not end it on so bad.
From Martha Ward, 1 star. It was so promising. The first 30 minutes were scary and suspenseful. I was cheering for the character to run, hide, fight. But then, I honestly, I think this was written by someone who murdered someone and wanted aliens to reward them with a world full of zombie alien body snatchers for a new life with no accountability. Antisocial person's fantasy. IDK. That's probably an insult to anti-soc people.
Jeez.
This movie could have been the flick of the year, but it was the flop of the year. Disappointed. Disappointed. It had potential. I was going to do one more. Here it is. From Mikizdo N. 1 star. They say, horrible, just absolutely horrible. I can't believe someone really produced a movie like this. How can someone watch such a poopy caca, poopy, boring, horrible, goofy movie? It was not silly. It was so confusing. My cat ended up in my oven. That's how confused he was. He didn't know the difference between his own bed and even started emoting. He literally started doing the gritty while playing Roblox. He started Fortnite emoting and Roblox emoting at the same time. I'm so disappointed I wasted my money on Hulu just to watch this. Grr, I'm so angry. Tis made me shown my other side. Thank you. We're not just telling stories. We're changing lives.
Wow.
And that should close us out there.
Yeah.
But that's part of the
internet review we've ever had on this show.
Yes, but that's what's contributing to these numbies that we hold fast to here on PolarizedPod. Is like every now and then you got to do a fucking troll review because they account for part of the score. We talked about Captain Marvel. I mean, come on. So, I mean, getting a taste of those reviews, people, I think, are extremely frustrated without the dialogue. Like, that's got to be, that seemed to be like a big thing. Not much happens. I think some of those were, some of them were more facetious than others. And I think they were frustrated with how it ended. I think frustrated with the whole experience in a broad way, at least from some of those reviews I got. I don't know. It seems understandable that not everyone would love this. Do you agree?
I do agree. Yeah. Cause it's too like genre-y and like trying to be indie that I think a lot of the stuff that we've talked about wanting more of, I think the general audience would be also interested in a little bit more meat with these potatoes, if you will.
I mean, you got plenty of boiling water going. You got plenty of potatoes.
Yeah. Let's get the grill going.
Yeah, let's get
that. Alien barbecue.
Hey.
That's what that's about.
Yeah, let's try that. Try that alien meat.
Okay.
Oh, come on. You would do it. You'd fucking do it.
Alien jerky. We're just going to, fucking place off a highway from here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, go to Roswell, storm Area 51
with a Naruto run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's how we get the jerky, man. That's all I want. Just give me that jerky.
Yum 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 yum.
Yum 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 yum. Let's give our numbies. Speaking of those damned numbies, what do you say, Brandini? You want to go first or second?
If we could, I'm gonna do a flip a coin.
Flip it. Flip it. I dare you. What are you calling? You can call it.
Oh, hold on.
Or I can pull it up on the Googs. Oh, you got it right there.
I got it.
You want me to call it?
Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay.
No one else at home can, but it's okay.
Call it.
Tails. He's got it. I got to get some drum roll.
It's heads.
So you get to choose, I guess. We didn't decide what that meant.
You go first.
Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't decide what it means before we flip. Yeah, this was. I'm pretty lukewarm on this movie. I think there's enough to like about it, and it's not too long that it's not completely like offensive, like some of the audience reviews seem to make it out to be. I was frustrated by some aspects of it. I think what was cool at the beginning as far as no dialogue ended up being a real hamper to the narrative and the overall enjoyment of this movie being, an hour and a half long. It pushed it just past an hour. If it was, I don't know, I feel like if it was an hour, I've made this point before, but an hour of no dialogue and it was an episode of an anthology, I could be a little bit more on board. But the fact that it was a fully fleshed out movie with that being such a hokey part of it, ended up being frustrating by the end when it was doing its, purported like job at the beginning. To me, it was like, oh, she is by herself. She doesn't talk to many people. That tracks. She doesn't go into town often. When she does, she doesn't talk to anybody. The alien thing happens, but when she goes into town that other time, gets spit on, and then just goes back home, I'm like kind of out of the movie at that time, which I'd say is like about halfway or so. I feel like, or maybe even just like a half hour in, because I feel like I marked it. It was like a half hour in when she gets spit on, because that was like so close to dialogue. And I was really just aching for it at that point, instead of being like, wow, this is not necessary. It's kind of cool that they're doing it this far. And that's hard. I don't want to completely hang my hat on just that being the main criticism, because if I were to touch on, the positive sides of it, Deaver's performance was otherworldly. It was fantastic. The director knew how to shoot her really well, and her expressions and her face, like through the rearview mirror in the car, and her angst and rise and falls of emotion when she had to pretend to, again, like looking in the mirror and pretending to be happy, and that smile and everything. Like, she made a meal out of it, but not in a way that I was ever annoyed with her. And to be with somebody for an hour and a half, just one character where she's in every scene, I think, that's a big plus for this movie, and something where like she was really great in Booksmart, and and Dear Evan Hansen, she wasn't bad in that. I wasn't crazy about that movie.
That wasn't right.
It wasn't the problem in that movie either, but
it was the ghoulish performance by Chris Platt. What is it?
He's in what is a theater camp movie? He's pretty great in that. Another time, but yeah, great performance. And then the design of the alien speech, maybe it's just because there was no other speech, but I was just like, ooh, this is cool. Their sounds were really cool and interesting, and worked with like my sub on my, my surround sound system. It was like, ooh, really blow and loud, and made the ship seem a little more menacing. I like the idea of an ending that isn't necessarily going to solve her problems, but it kind of utilizes it in a way for her to, I think, like I said before, I would have liked it if it was her decision, but her smile at the end in this whole alien world with a bunch of weird aliens, pretending to be people. That's kind of like a cool little image there, that they knew that they could like at least end on a bang with that image at the end there. But overall, it was more frustrating and not as much of a satisfying experience as I wanted it. And I'm feeling very lukewarm, so I feel like it deserves kind of a lukewarm score. And it's I don't think it's fresh.
Uh-oh.
Fuck. It's like a 52. We'll do 52. It's kind of just like, and I'm not sure if I would recommend it wholeheartedly, but in an exercise of telling somebody about it, it would, and that's what this movie is going to be. Inevitably, for me, is going to be like, that's the one that doesn't have dialogue. And if you want to see a movie that's an hour and a half and doesn't have dialogue, and it does an okay job of getting through that, it's there. But if the beginning doesn't catch you, then I'd say just put it back down. So it's just a half-hearted recommendation from me, and I'd like to hear from the great Bandini.
Doop doop doop.
Snoop doop doop.
Yeah. So I wouldn't recommend this movie to people. It's unfortunate because I think Caitlin Deaver's performance is worth talking about, but this movie is so much more concept and flash over substance. It is library technology platform fodder. Unfortunately, I love the fact that this movie got made to a degree, and again, I like the performance from Caitlin Deaver, but this isn't going to save anything. It's not going to persuade people on anything. It doesn't have an interest. Like, its point of view is sparse and so difficult to recommend. So for my score, since I wouldn't really recommend this movie, you know what? I really do want to give enough, like I just said, credit to the movie. I'm going to go a 49% is where I'm at.
He's a 49er.
49er.
Well done. Well done, podcast. Well done, Brandini.
James Deany.
Spank you. Helpy Helperton. It's been enjoyable talking about this movie. And if I haven't already said it, I do think this is right in our alley of this podcast, of inciting a reaction in people. And the best way you can do it in a lot of ways is coming out on reviews on Rotten Tomatoes or the internet. I'll see every single movie as just, there'll be one person that will say, I never write reviews, but this movie made me write my first review. Here it is. And that's the kind of shit that I think these movies here on this podcast do more than others, is make people be like, I gotta fucking let out some steam on how I feel about this, good or bad. And that's always enjoyable to go through that process. Hope you guys have enjoyed us doing the same thing as well, and talking about our opinions. It's always fun for us to shoot the shit about movies. And we would like to invite you next time to join us for our movie, which will be another one from 2023. It is Infinity Pool, a Cronenbergy picturoni. It is an 87% certified fresh movie by the critics. It is a 52% by the audience. Horror, mystery, thriller. We're keeping it going a little bit with the Octo Novo horror situation. I'll read you the synopsis here. Let's see what it says on Rotten Tomatoes itself. While staying at an isolated island resort, James and Em are enjoying a perfect vacation of pristine beaches, exceptional staff, and soaking up the sun. But guided by the seductive and mysterious Gabby, they venture outside the resort grounds and find themselves in a culture filled with violence, hedonism, and untold horror.
Oh, God.
A tragic accident leaves them facing a zero tolerance policy for crime. Either you'll be executed, or if you're rich enough to afford it, you can watch yourself die instead. Let's see what it's about. We'll find out. I already feel like I didn't even want to know that. It'd probably be good just going in blind. And I'm excited to see what it's about. We love you all, our little polar bears out there. If you want to reach us anywhere else, PolarizedPod@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/PolarizedPod and X as well. Polarized Pod and YouTube, Polarized Pod. There's recordings on there if you find that an easy way to listen. Maybe we'll throw more stuff up on there if you guys are interested. Let us know. Yeah. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Every time I hear Monster Mash, I'm like, this is not a banger. This is not a banger. And I know bangers. I know bangers. I used to DJ in the early 2000s. Ever been to Canada? Yeah, if you have in the early 2000s, that's probably me playing them bangers. And every single time I've ever heard Monster Mash, I'm like, nah, my guy, that's not a banger. Nobody ever wants to hear Monster Mash. And if you play Monster Mash outside of Halloween, you're a psycho. If Monster Mash has ever made a playlist that's not for Halloween, you're weird. You're freaking weird. Stay away from me, dude. I've heard it enough. I've had my fill of freaking Monster Mash. We've all had our fill of Monster Mash. It was a mash. It was a graveyard smash. Freaking 19,000 times I hear it was a mash. It was a monster mash. Nobody wants to freaking hear that, dude. Monster Mash sucks. It's a freaking 1950s rock and roll song sung by a vampire. All three of those things suck, my guy.